Basically, I'd agreed that I would take an MMA fight, and I was actually helping a buddy of mine. His name was Drew Grazaradze. He's a massive heavyweight Muay Thai guy. I was helping him get ready for this cross-border matchup. The week of the fight, I accidentally broke his nose. I threw a knee when he went down, and it caught him on the nose and blasted his nose. So my coach was like, we don't have anyone to fill in. You have to take the spot. I was like, oh shit. So I got thrusted into that main event and knocked that guy out in the first round. And then everyone was like, oh, like, you got to do MMA, dude. And I was like, I already agreed I was going to do MMA, so let's do it. It was crazy because John Jones was at that event, Rashad Evans was at that event, and they were still like relative nobodies. They weren't even like champs or nothing in the UFC yet.
Welcome to Fruiting Body Podcast with your host, Brendan. Today we have an absolute legend of a guest. He's only here a short while, and he's moving on over to Singapore for karate combat. This is Sasha Palatnikov. I got that right, Palatnikov.
Yes, sir, you got it. Nailed
only
it.
In the podcast, I always mess up everyone's name. It's the only thing in my head. Well, he was in Hong Kong and I was in Shenzhen, so we can probably discuss about the nickname Guilo, because I completely understand what that means. So we'll get into that in a minute. You're going to learn about that. Today, we're just going to be having a quick chat. Usually we got people that are living in Thailand and we can dive a bit deeper. Speaking of diving, we're going to speak about his father's side and what he was doing in Hong Kong. All right, I'm rambling too much because I've had a ton of coffee and 2 podcasts already. So without further ado, let's get this started. All right, thanks, buddy, for joining. Those are my intros. That's it.
That's dope.
Yeah, I always fuck up the names at the beginning. It's like in my head.
You did good.
Yeah, good enough. Okay, so usually we kind of like to just jump into your background story and what brought you to Thailand. Obviously, you're over at Bangtao Muay Thai and MMA and staying with Frank. But first, which was my curious question, you're white, living in Hong Kong. I mean, I've lived in Asia 15 years, no different there. But let's get that background. Born and raised in Hong Kong. Talk about your parents' background and what really brought you there.
Yeah, born and raised in Hong Kong. My father is I guess you can say USSR native. He escaped communism and seek legal migration to the United States, became an American citizen at the age of 18. And my dad's background is diving. He was a professional high diver, springboard diver, cliff diver. His goal as a child was to be an Olympic champion. But back in those times, during communism and all that, there was a little bit of, it was difficult. It was difficult for him to get out and compete because politics, there was the Cold War, the athletes weren't allowed to go and compete at the Seoul Olympics, stuff like that. So my dad had enough, and he decided that he wanted to get his family out of there. So they got to the U.S. My dad arrived there with no money, no language, no nothing, and started to try to sell lights to Americans. He worked at a light store in Brooklyn, New York. He lived in the hood with his family, and he started grinding, and his only skill was diving. So he arrived in the States, not really sure how to find that road to be able to do what he specializes in. But through a bit of time, he was able to get in touch with a couple places, and he ended up getting offered a scholarship to dive at, if I'm not mistaken, where was the school? It was a good school.
In the U.S.
In New York, yeah. It was an educational school, but he found out that getting a scholarship means you don't get paid. And he was like, I don't need a free education, I need to get paid. So through that, they recommended him to an entertainment company that was doing shows at Six Flags, Great Adventure, that kind of places like that. So he linked up with them, and then through that was able to get paid to dive. Was traveling around the country performing, and then became an American citizen, and then eventually represented the U.S. in cliff diving. So he would go out to like Acapulco, Mexico, represent the U.S. in cliff diving in Florida, and that was just kind of his life, his career. And then after that, he started to travel internationally, doing shows in Europe, doing shows in Africa, doing shows in Asia. And he met my mom in South Africa. My mom's actually Scottish, but she grew up in South Africa. She was a hairdresser at the show that my dad was performing at. And he's like, he fell in love with her, and he's like, come with me, travel the world, and, see what I do. And he ended up going to Europe. They stayed there for a few years, and then they got a contract to Australia, moved down to Australia, And then another contract came in for Hong Kong. So they jumped over to Hong Kong, and accidentally I appeared, and that's how I was born in Hong Kong.
Did you get a Hong Kong passport as well, or?
So technically speaking, you have to have Chinese blood to have a Hong Kong passport. There was a little bit of some issues as I was a teenager because I wanted to represent Hong Kong in boxing. But because I didn't have Chinese blood, they wouldn't give me permission to do so. But I represented Hong Kong in rugby, basketball. So it was a bit of a strange situation. But no, I have a British passport and American passport.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, growing up in Hong Kong, was this early 2000s?
1989.
Okay.
That was when I was born, and
your childhood, the 90s growing up.
Oh yeah, no. So basically, I spent my childhood was all through Hong Kong, and then I left to Australia when I was about 14. Okay. My first sport as a kid was karate, but also rugby. So I played rugby professionally, and that was my first passion. So I got an opportunity to go to a boarding school in Australia, and my goal, was to be a professional. So
have you crossed paths with Sean Kober then?
With who?
Sean Kober, Coach Cobes from Tiger Muay Thai?
No, sir.
Oh, he's big in the rugby side and
okay.
on from Australia as well. When you're growing up in Hong Kong in the 90s, I mean, was it difficult in these schools? I mean, were you the only white kid in there, or how did that? Were you at the international schools?
Yeah, no, thankfully. So growing up in Hong Kong, especially on the karate side, I was in a very, very local dojo. There was no other white kids there, but it wasn't until I got to about primary school, elementary school, and high school. I was at an expat private school, so you got people from all over. Yeah. It was very, very international. But just Hong Kong is so unique that it's a melting pot. You got everybody from everywhere. I didn't ever feel like a minority or out of place.
It's one of the nicest cities in the world. Let's be honest.
For sure.
Hong Kong, Tokyo, Montreal. We were talking about Singapore. It's on that level.
Absolutely.
It's funny when you talk to people from back home and you mention places like even Bangkok, Hong Kong, they think third world, and they don't understand. It's Hong Kong's better than any city in your country.
Facts. Yeah, no, it's a very unique city. It's a very safe place to grow up. At a very young age, I was very independent. I wanted to be an adult fast, and I had the ability just to leave my home and just spend 12 hours on going and doing whatever I wanted to do. Never really had any fear of getting in any kind of trouble. All I wanted to do was play sports and hang out with my friends.
And then how did you actually get into karate in Hong Kong? Just one day you've walked into the dojo, or how did you get pushed to that?
As a kid, I had a lot of energy. I was running up the walls. My parents were getting kind of sick of me, and I think my mom's friend recommended it. There was a free government program, so you could just basically go for free 4 times a week to this karate dojo. There's about 70 students ranging from the age of 5 years old to 70. And it was very traditional, almost there's about 2.5 hour, 3 hour class of kata, and then you do your form and technique and sparring at the end. And it was just something that my parents thought, okay, great, we don't got to spend any money, and he's out of the house. So when he comes home, he's going to, knock the fuck out, go to sleep, and we don't got to worry about him. So that was genuinely the first push. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was very tough, very strict. Let's just say the way that they operated back then, Sensei would be in jail today, but it was something that it was traumatizing. Even when I look back and think about it, for 2 years, I would go to school and be like, oh, fuck, I got to go to karate tonight. I'd be so upset. I'd try to think of a way that I could get out. But my parents would always make me go. And then my dad started doing it as well, so I definitely had to go. But the reason why it was so traumatic for me was the sparring aspect, because when I first came in at 5 years old, the next oldest kid was 7. So he had a couple of years advantage over me, and that was my main sparring partner, because the next kid over him was 9. So, and then that kid was going with older kids. So we were just kind of partnered off for 2 years. And this kid had more experience than me, and he would basically just kick me in the stomach and win me every time. And I couldn't stop it. And it was literally maybe 2-3 times a week where I'd be in tears, getting winded, and I hated it. And I wouldn't get any kind of positive reinforcement or any kind, they just kind of looked at me and were just just go on about it. So there were times I would be holding onto door frames, trying not to let my mom take me to karate, or my dad. I really, really didn't want to be there. And then fast forward these 2 years, I start to get a little bit stronger. I get a little bit more physical. My dad's actually helping me a lot, making me do push-ups, that kind of stuff. And then one day I go to the sparring with the same mentality, fuck, I'm going to get hurt again, get ready for it. And then I kicked this kid in the stomach, and he went down. And that's when everything changed. I got complimented by my sensei. I got complimented by older students. And from that moment, my confidence just went through the roof. I wasn't the most confident as a young man. Like, I was a little nervous around older people and stuff like that. But after that moment, all of a sudden, I just got my confidence. And then the passion just grew. I was like, fuck, I just want to get better. I finally saw myself improve. I just thought I was, like, plateauing forever. And then to finally get, like, one up on this guy who's owned me for 2 years, it was, it was a great feeling. And it put me, like, in that position now that I was like, I can do this. And and then I just continued doing it. I started at 5. I finished karate at around 13. And then I moved and shifted more into like Muay Thai boxing along with rugby. But the mindset was never like, oh, I want to be a professional fighter. It was just, this was great off-season training. I can stay in shape. And I really enjoyed fighting. I enjoyed like, competing once a month with other gyms. We'd have like burners, these small little fights, and it was just fun. I just enjoyed it.
Living in Hong Kong, your peers around you, especially the community. I mean, when you think of someone that living in Hong Kong, the first question is, oh, your dad's in finance. Mm-hmm. This is usually what it goes to. So those international schools, I mean, you can be surrounded by parents where their parents are billionaires. It's not out of the question.
Facts.
So going into the sports side, was this always a passion, or did you ever at one point want to make a decision to pivot into the education and business side?
To be honest with you, sports is my passion. I love sport. As a kid, like my heroes growing up, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, the U.S. was a place that I idolized as a child because growing up in Hong Kong, I couldn't really watch anything because of the time difference. And then just access at that time to watching live sports was like very limited. So whenever I would get a chance to watch something, it would be like Sunday afternoon, they do like a highlight episode of like the week of basketball or a week of whatever. And I was like, that was all I was looking forward to watching, and I would write things in my books and pictures. And I loved sports. I just knew sports was like my number one. And in terms of like education, I never really thought like, oh, I want to be, I want to be in finance or I want to be a lawyer. Like my mom obviously was like, yeah, I want you to be a doctor or an accountant, a lawyer. School for me was never like a challenging thing. It was just something that I know I had to do, but at the same time, my goals, my passions were just in sport, and my dad kind of gave me insight into like how to operate as a businessman at a young age. He never, like you said, being around billionaires, being around very wealthy kids. I mean, I go and hang out with my homie and his butler is picking me up. Like my family, we weren't like that. We were very blue collar. And it opened my eyes to it because I would go and spend a weekend with these kids and they would be like, eating at the 5-star restaurants, fine dining, butlers, everything you could imagine, and the mansions and on the peak, like. And then I go back to my place and I'm like, why don't we have this? And then my dad, and I would say to my dad, like, Dad, why don't we have a Ferrari? And he's like, I could buy a Ferrari if I wanted to, but why? What's the point? So I started to like understand at a young age, like what really matters. And he taught me how to make money at a young age. Once I started going to boarding school, he would give me a certain amount of money, like a couple $100. And he'd be like, okay, take this money, buy something that your friends want, and then take it to Australia and sell it to them. I was like, cool.
So you're doing the boarding school in Australia. That's when
yes,
you said
sir.
You went at 14?
Yes. That's when I left out to Australia at 14. And yeah, he basically taught me how to be like my own entrepreneur at a young age. And being in a place like Hong Kong, you have access to everything, especially at that time. Like people weren't able to access the things that we get today back then. It was all made there.
Yeah, they had good designer rip-off bags back then too.
Oh yeah, polos, everything, bro. Stanley,
you pop into down Stanley.
Yes.
Actually, they have decent stuff there.
Oh yeah, Mongkok was actually where I would go. Mongkok was where I could get all my good stuff. But yeah, man, and he taught me early. He would like give me a couple $100. I'd spend all of that money on product, go back there, and then like 5 times, 10 times my money, and then I got money for the semester. So, I'm just a teenager learning this early, but I applied that throughout my life. I understood I understood how taxes work. I understood how everything worked at a very young age. My dad didn't treat me like a kid. He treated me like an adult, a business partner. So when I went away to Australia, that was kind of like, my focus then was like, okay, I can make money. I don't need to have a job. I don't need to have a degree. At least I get to be able to do what I love. And if I'm able to get paid to play a game, I'm going to continue doing it. And that's kind of the road I went. I graduated high school at 17, started playing rugby professionally. I turned 18, moved to Russia, never been there in my life. Was in Siberia playing rugby out there. And
were you playing for their teams out there?
Yeah, so it was a professional club called Yenisei STM. They were like, at the time, one of the top teams in the country. They had quite a big financial backing, so they were recruiting players from like New Zealand, Australia. The only reason they found me was they were in Australia watching it was like a Queensland Trials event, and they looked at the like starting lineup for one of the teams, and they saw my name, obviously very Russian, and they were like, who the fuck's this guy? So through the coaching staff, they actually got these Russians in contact with my dad, and they were in contact with my dad. And my dad one day called me. As a kid, I was looking to sign like an under 23 junior contract to stay in Australia. I was like super excited for that. And then my dad reached out to me and he's like, hey, we have an offer for a team in Russia. Are you interested? And I'm like, honestly, no. I was like, but then he's like, trust me, you will be when you find out how much they want to pay you. So then when I did find out that, it was like not even close to what I would have been making playing in Australia. So yeah, within 3-4 months, we were back in Hong Kong getting ready to get ready for the season.
Where were you going in Russia? Which area?
It's called Krasnoyarsk. It's
like Siberia?
Yeah, Siberia.
Jeez.
Yeah,
this
dude.
is like Omsk and like this area. Jeez.
Yes, middle of nowhere, dude. And like, funny thing is, like, you speak to a Russian and you ask them, what do you know about Krasnoyarsk? They'll tell you it's known to have the most beautiful women in the world. Okay. That's literally all they said to me when I got there.
Was it true?
It was true.
Damn. Okay.
Very true, man.
I should have told you that before you signed the contract. Here's some pictures. Don't even look at the numbers.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a eye-opening experience, you know, going from, and my Russian was very limited at the time, so going out there and just being able to immerse yourself in the culture, but not only not communicate. I played fly half, I played 10, so I had to be able to communicate. So I was in there just trying to get by, trying to learn, trying to just experience the culture. I was, 18 years old, just a young, dumb kid.
How many years were you out there?
I played one season. I played one season. I was there for like 6 months. Second to last game of the season, I dislocated my elbow, required surgery. And that's how I ended up making my way out to Canada. I came home. I was like in a very bad place, sad, upset, depressed. I had a great year. And this injury was not what I expected. And then my parents were like, hey, like this is just an example. Sport doesn't last forever. Yep. You need an education. You never know, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, I was very, a little naive, but also negative, and was just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I just want to heal my shit and get back to action, So then my dad, like low-key, without even telling me, just sent out a bunch of my film to schools in the U.S. and Canada, hoping maybe an opportunity would come up. And at the time, the U.S. weren't really too interested. They weren't, rugby wasn't like a really big thing. But in Canada at the time, they were a little bit more serious with their rugby. And I got a scholarship from a school in Montreal, Concordia University. So my dad walks into my room and he's like, you want to go to Montreal? And I'm like, I'll be honest with you. I was like, I don't know where the fuck that is. I was like, I don't know where that is. He's like, it's in Canada. I was like, cool. I was like, I've never been to Canada. So I had no prospect at that time. When he told me that, I was like, why not? Why not go to school? So showed up to Montreal. I had no idea what I wanted to study. They were like, yeah, what do you want to study?
But you got admitted to the school?
Yeah.
You got into just purely on the
rugby.
On the scholarship, and then you get to kind of decide your major.
Yeah, exactly. So I showed up there and like...
It's not an easy school to get into because everyone, when I was living in Toronto, it's either you really wanted to go to Concordia because it was easier than McGill.
Yeah.
But it still was not easy to get into.
Yeah, no, like I said, my grades in school, I always got good grades in school. I never really like struggled in that. I had an easy time, but I was never like passionate. My teachers always told me like, if I'm passionate about something, I'll smash it. I'll do it no problem. But if I'm not into it, like I'm not going to give my all, And that's how I felt with my education, at least growing up. But then when I met this advisor, he's like, yeah, like you want to do communications or psychology or history. And I was just like, bro, I don't care. Like I'll just do history, whatever. So I put myself in as a history major, did absolutely nothing with it, just took a couple general classes. I wasn't even really going to class. It was like I walk into this room and there's, 200 people sitting in this massive lecture hall, and I'm like, there's just like one monotone dude at the bottom trying to like educate us, and I'm like, I think I could just read the textbook at home and probably do this, So I barely went to class. I would just show up to the exams, do what needed to be done to pass, and then play rugby.
Were you there for 4 years?
No, I was only there for a year and a half.
Year and a half. Which street were you living on?
I was living in, what do they call it, NDG?
NDG, yeah.
I was living in NDG. When I first arrived, I was on the dorms. I was up on the, not downtown, but...
NDG's far from downtown Concordia.
Well, yes, because there's 2 campuses.
Oh, you're at the NDG campus.
Yes,
my buddy,
yeah.
I just talked to him last week. That's funny. He was playing football, and he was...
At Concordia?
At Concordia and going to NGG. But we're 85, so...
Okay, so yeah, I might have just missed him because I played football at Concordia.
Well, you're 89. Yeah, he would have been there. He would have done 4. Yeah, he did 4 years Concordia. Derek Schroeder, maybe not. You probably would. If we're 4 years, you would have just missed.
Yeah, because basically when I moved there and got into the rugby, I kind of realized quickly the level was very low compared to what I'd been exposed to. So I kind of was like, fuck. And at the football program, as you know, in Concordia is like one of the best in the country. So all those guys, I gravitated towards them in the gym as I was rehabbing my elbow, just like, oh, these are the cool cats. These are the guys that are working out. Like, these are the alphas, Whereas the rugby guys were more like kind of social guys, drinkers. They would just like get together, get fucked up, play a little bit of rugby, And so that wasn't really my like lifestyle at the time. And I was gravitating more towards the football. And my rugby season finished. It went well, and I was considering moving to England because I had friends that I'd come up with who are now playing professionally in England, making good money. So I was like, maybe that's the next option. And then all of a sudden, I get invited to a basketball game. It's Illinois are coming to Montreal to play against Concordia, and Jeffrey Jordan, Michael Jordan's son, is playing. So there's like a kind of a bit of hype going on for this. So everyone's like coming in and trying to support the school. So I'm chilling there with a couple football players, and the head coach at the time just sees me. And they would always see me because when we would finish practice, the end of our practice, I would be kicking, and then they would be making their way onto the field. So by the time like they were on the field, they would see me doing some kicks, and then I would make my way out of there. But so he'd seen me, and he came up to me. He's like, man, I've seen you around. Like, what's your story? What's your name? Da, da, da. And I was like, oh, my name's Sasha, blah, blah, blah. I'm from Australia. He's like, would you have any interest in playing football? And I was like, I'll be honest with you, sir. Like, I don't know the rules. I never watched football. I really didn't know anything about it. But he's like, but I could see he was interested in my kicking. I was a good punter. I was a good punter. And so I was like, maybe. But I was like, why would I take the fun of rugby away and just go and kick a ball and go back on the sideline, right? So he was like, look, if you're interested, we're doing our tryouts at the moment, like off-season stuff. If you wanted to come in and do some live drills and try and give it a go, see how you feel on defense, more than welcome to try out. And I was kind of like, nah, like, I'll stay in my lane. Like, I know what I'm good at. Like, I don't want to, step on any toes kind of thing. And then a couple of the football players I told, they're like, bro, fucking do it. And then I called my dad, and my dad's like, what do you got to lose? Go fucking try it. So next day I went and saw the coach, told him I'm going to try. And then he gave me all the paperwork to get my physical. That week was a weightlifting week for the team, so they finished their weightlifting week. And then the next week, they're in a dome. It would be 1 week on, 1 week off, and they were in a dome. Obviously, Montreal, you know how cold it gets. It's like January, February, so it's fucking cold. So we're in a dome at like 6 a.m. doing 100 plays, doing positional drills, doing all that stuff. And I'm there for the first time, like, holy shit, I've got a helmet on, I've got shoulder pads on. This is like a whole new experience that I've never felt. But I'm a natural athlete. I know how to tackle people. I know how to run. I know how to move. Like, these things are pretty simple. But as soon as we started to get into the more technical side of the game, it started to get tough for me, But every time they practiced on the field in the dome, they would do 100 plays. So whatever it is, it's 100 plays. Offense versus defense. It's not full speed or anything, but they're getting in that work. And usually what happens is you have your first stringers run like the first 50 plays, and then you'll have like second stringer maybe run 10, third string maybe run 10, and then maybe the first stringer will come back in to finish off. So I'm just standing there watching. They're just like, yeah, learn, watch, observe, learn everything. And I'm kind of just like, yeah, cool, you know. And then the coach, with 3 plays left, he's like, they used to call me Aussie, like Australian, because that's where I came from. So they're like, come on over, get your last 3 plays and let's see what you can do. And I'm fucking like, what the fuck? I'm nervous. I don't know what to do. So I run in there. My homie, my roommate at the time, he's the captain of the defense. His name's Corey Greenwood, Canadian kid. He played in the NFL. Phenomenal athlete, awesome guy. I get in there into the huddle. I'm like, dude, what do I do? And he's like, just go get the quarterback. You know, so I'm lining up as an outside linebacker, defensive end, and line up against this, I think he was like 6'7", 330-pound freaking lineman. That's another thing. I never seen humans so big in my life before. You know, it was a whole new experience. And so ball snapped. I run straight at this offensive lineman, and my first instinct is to do an inside spin move. I just went, boop, spin inside. I got past him, and then our quarterback started to roll out to the left side. So my homie was like, go get him. You know, that's what I was like, all right, I'll go tackle him. So I'm running after this kid, and then I'm guessing, like, on the outside that he was running to, like, our defense was coming up, so he started to cut back. And when he cut back, I just hit him. Like, we're talking like shoulder to shoulder, but he didn't see it coming, so he did a full-on like 360 flip. Like, next thing you know, I'm on the ground, and there's like 5 guys on top of me throwing punches at me, like beating the fuck out of me. And then people are like grabbing people, like, oh, he didn't know. And I'm like sitting, obviously I'm all covered up. I'm not getting hurt, but I could just feel like, tak, you know, getting hit. I'm like, what the fuck? And then people are like, he doesn't know. And then I get up, and everyone's like talking shit, like just kind of shouting at me. I'm like, bro, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And they're like, you're never supposed to touch quarterback, especially in practice. That's why he wears a red jersey, da-da-da. I'm like, fuck, I didn't know. Like, I was like, Corey told me to get the quarterback. I got the quarterback, you know? So they took me out after that one play, and I was like, oh, fuck. Like, you know, I thought I was like going to get in trouble or something. And the next 2 plays came out. A couple people on the sideline like, bro, that was fucking crazy, you know? And I was like, fuck. And then at the end of practice, what happened was they do something called a breakdown, where it's like they'll talk about individuals who did plays, like, oh, the running back did amazing, the middle linebacker did amazing, and da-da-da-da, and then they pick one person to break it down. So they're talking, the coach is going on all this thing. I'm kind of just standing there, and the coach goes, in my 22 years of coaching, have I never seen a practice where a quarterback's feet left the ground and went 360 degrees. He's like, I'm not going to lie, I liked it. He's like, sorry to tell you that, Mahoney, that was our quarterback. But he's like, that was one of the most impressive things that I've seen in my 22 years. He's like, Sasha, I know you didn't know. He's like, this is your first time playing the sport, but we were impressed with what you did today. He's like, break it down. So I was like, okay, cool. What do I do? Say a few words, break it down. So I broke it down. Didn't think anything of it. I'm walking off the field, and this 4-year senior walks right up to me, and he's like, hey, bro. He's like, I've been here 4 years. I've never broke it down once. He's like, they like you. I was like, huh. So that right there was like, okay, I'm going to go in with this football thing. I'm going to try it out. So it became like another subject of school. You know, I was playing Madden, you know, reading the defensive playbook.
Did you play a full season with them? Or?
Yeah, I played a full season in Montreal.
Position?
Defensive end.
Defensive end. Going.
Yeah.
And initially they kind of just wanted you to be a kicker.
Yeah, so I was a defensive end and punter.
Yeah.
So I was like the guy, I would punt the ball, and I'd be one of the first guys to go make the tackle, you know, and same thing on defense. I just didn't want to be only a punter. I told them, please let me play another position. So, you know, I was like 215 at the time, and they're like, you know, playing rugby. So they're like, yeah, you want to try to get to like 240, 250. So changed my whole diet, you know, changed my whole system of living, and fully I was waking up 3 a.m, drinking protein shakes, you know, doing that whole stupid shit, and just trying everything I could to make sure that I was ready to be a football player.
Did you get to 240?
I got to 255.
Fucking hell. Because now you probably, weigh what?
Right now?
190.
Oh, yeah. Right now, I'm 196.
196.
I'm fighting 186 tomorrow.
Next
week. So
that's a lot. I mean, to get up to solid 50 pounds of like muscle and...
Brother, it was tough, you know, but the thing is, when you play football, it's 7 seconds of sprint, and that's it. You don't need cardio. You know, whereas when I made that transition from football back into MMA, I lost like 50 pounds in like 3 months.
So why not stay like usually Concordia? You'd be there for 4 years. Why leave after a year and a bit?
So basically, when we made the transition into football, my dad was talking with the coaches, and he's like, look, if he can do this like to a high level, please tell us, because if not, we'll get right back into the rugby. You know, we don't want to waste his time. We don't want to waste your time. But the thing was, I had to invest in myself because I lost my scholarship for rugby. and they weren't giving me a scholarship for football. So I had to pay the tuition out of my own pocket to give myself this opportunity. But what they said to me is like, look, we'll take care of you. We'll give you as much as we can this season. We'll give you the opportunity to play. And then we'll kind of guide you from here if you want to go play in the United States. I'm an American citizen. I was an international kid playing in Canada, so obviously my tuition was right up there.
I think at least
12 grand.
12 grand.
Yeah, that's what I ended up paying.
I remember the Americans, because Canadians we pay like 2-3, and then Americans are like 12.
Yep, that's what I literally paid, and that was like my investment in myself,
which is much cheaper than going to a D1 school. Jesus,
30 grand,
right?
Yep, that was another situation I went through. But yeah, so I basically gave that. Like, okay, I'm going to do this. Because I had an opportunity to go that summer to England to play rugby, and I said no. So I was like, I'm going in with this football. So I fully dedicated myself to it. It was exciting for me. And then my dad's like, look, if he does well, do you think like he could do something? And they're like, look, for sure as a punter, he can 100% punt in the NFL. 100%. That was what they were telling me. But they're like, in terms of playing defensively, I can't guarantee you that. Like, again, mentally, I just wasn't there, bro. Like, I've only been playing the sport for 6 months. Literally didn't know any of the rules, so it was taking time for me to catch up in that regard. But my dad was like, look, he's an American citizen. What do you guys recommend? And they're like, look, he plays 1 season here, moves to the U.S., go to a junior college, make a highlight film, send it to all the schools in the country, and just wait and see.
Yeah, but there's a big step up between Concordia and D1.
Absolutely.
Like, you're talking, it's a
completely different game.
It's a different game. That's why we got
sport.
CFL.
Yes, sir.
CFL's for the people that didn't make it in D1.
Correct. Or the NFL, yeah.
Like, I mean, they're coming this way. Like, Concordia is kind of, or not Concordia, but like a university Canadian football is an extension of high school, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I remember my buddies growing up, and the Americans from high school would come over and play our high school team. Fuck,
no, run right through them.
Right through them.
Yeah, it's a different game. Like, the thing is, the Canadian game is a bigger field. It's more of a running, whereas in football in the U.S., it's like, let me fucking run the ball down your throat. Yeah. It's real congested in there. So it was different, but when I moved to the States, I moved to a junior college, and I just showed up there. It was a completely different environment than what I had at Concordia. We're talking about a team environment in Concordia, and then going to a junior college where everyone is an individual chasing a scholarship. So it's good for one way and being competitive, but in terms of being a team, it's terrible. And so I went out there with the same focus, just go out there, make plays, make film, and send it out. I did it. I played 1 season there. Literally made 100 DVDs by myself, sent out 100 DVDs to 100 schools, and just waited for letters to arrive. And I got about maybe 20, 25 letters from anywhere from D2 to D1 AA, Division I schools, all 3. And then basically I picked 5. In the NCAA, you're only allowed to pick 5 to go visit. I picked 5 and went and visited these schools. They went, kind of sugar daddy you a bit, show you the good time, take you to the frat house, get you some girls, go to the games, and then you basically make your decision. I was recruited by Florida State, so I committed to Florida State. My roommate at the time was a commit to Arkansas, so he was originally from Jacksonville. So I moved down with him to Jacksonville in the spring of that year because I just wanted to get out the cold, and I was only 45 minutes from Tallahassee, so I was just commuting 45 just to go and do some of the spring training stuff. And whatever like paperwork that I needed to do with the school, I could just go and do it, So it was very convenient in that regard. And yeah, everything that I'd worked for was coming to fruition. I was so happy to not only be in the U.S. playing Division I football, but also with a massive program. Florida State, the Seminoles were just at that time a big school. And
but what's the goal here? Is it like I need to be the best at this? And are you thinking NFL, or are you just thinking right now for this time I want to get good at doing this sport?
I wanted to. My dad basically, we discussed it, and he's like, "Look, you can make minimum of $600,000 a year just kicking a ball." And I'm like, I didn't realize that at the time. I was making good money playing rugby, but you're not making anywhere near that a year. So I was like, maybe that's the way, and if I can't get on defense, fine. Those guys are scary as fuck anyway. So, so yeah, I just was like focused fully on being a punter. And then this is where everything kind of fucking went to shit for me. Obviously, as you know, I've been educated all over the world. So when the process of transferring over happened, I needed to submit all my transcripts. We're talking Hong Kong, Australia, Canada, upstate New York. So all those things had to come in. I was eligible. I had 60 credits to transfer as a junior, and unfortunately, they found like 18 credits that they wouldn't accept. So they're basically telling me I'm ineligible for a scholarship in the fall. So if you pay the tuition and walk on, you'll be on the team, but we'll give you a scholarship in the spring because you'll be eligible by then. And I'm like, I'm not footing the bill for $30K.
Yeah.
Like, it's not happening. Like, I'm not doing. That's probably what I had to my name at the time. As I was, 19 years old, I was like, nah, like, I can't do that. I was like, I just invested 12 in myself. That was like what I had set myself like, yeah, and then we're gonna go, So I was like, another 30. I was like, nah. So then I was upset, like very upset. I was crying, like I didn't know what to do. They were like, and then I was trying to go back to other programs that had offered me scholarships, and they're like, we've already given our scholarships. We can't do anything for you. So I was bummed out, and my dad was like, my dad's always my equalizer. He doesn't let me get too far down. He doesn't let me get too far up. So he's like, look, dude, nothing we can do. You're a New York State resident. Apply it as a fucking regular student to all the schools in New York. Whichever one accepts you with the best football program, walk on. If you're good enough, they'll find you. So I was like, I have no other option. I was like, fuck it. So I got into a bunch of schools. University of Buffalo was the best program at the time. I had Stony Brook. I even looked at Rutgers. Syracuse is a private school I wasn't going to pay. So there were a couple options, Albany, but Buffalo at the time had the best program. So packed up my car from Jacksonville and hit the road to Buffalo straight, and had no contacts. I had a couple letters of recommendation from Bobby Bowden, some of the staff at Florida State, just to say, like, this guy was a scholarship guy, like, just kind of take care of him if you can. And went up to Buffalo, and they didn't give a fuck about me. They're just like, yeah, come on, when camp starts, we'll see you. And yeah, I showed up there, did what I thought I had to do. I was in the best shape of my life. I was an absolute monster for football, defensively and as a kicker. I played with some very good guys, and unfortunately, I just never got my break. I couldn't figure it out. I had a better punt average than both punters on that team. They'd been there longer than me, but yeah, they just never gave me an opportunity. They didn't let me dress. For 7 weeks, I didn't even see the field. And I had a conversation multiple times with these coaches. Look, what I got to do. What do you need from me? What do you want me to do? This is what I've come here to do. And I just felt like I was wasting my time. And I was like, fuck, I could have been playing rugby. I could be making money. Like, these are all the things going through my head while I'm watching my teammates lose every weekend. So it got to a point where I was just kind of like starting to lose the plot a little bit, like mentally. And one day after they got blown out by Tennessee on ESPN, they came back, and I was just waiting for the coaches in their office, and walked in there and kind of just told them how I felt, and they didn't like it. And then we kind of like got into a bit of a back and forth, and it didn't end amicably. I got a cup of pens thrown at me, and then I punched a hole in the wall, and that was the end of my football career, dude. I walked out of that place like a raging bull. Like, I didn't know. I just completely self-sabotaged myself. Went home fuming with the urge to punch some more holes in walls, and thankfully stopped and was like, I need to go to a gym. I need to go punch a bag. Like, it'd been years since I'd hit anything, punched or kicked. I've been so focused in football, and I looked up, literally just went on Google, boxing gym. Went to the closest boxing gym I could find in Buffalo, and it was actually an MMA gym. Walked in there, and there was a jiu-jitsu class going on, and the owner of the jiu-jitsu came up to me. He's like, hey, would you like to jump in the jiu-jitsu class? We're about to start. Like, I'll give you a free gi. You can do the class for free, like an introduction. And I'm like, bro, I just want to come in and hit the bag. Is that cool? Like, I just want to pay a drop in. Like, I ain't trying to roll on the floor with some dudes. Like, I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was. Like, I literally said, I don't want to roll on the ground in my pajamas. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want to hit the bag. And he's like really pushing me. And I'm like, all right, fuck it, dude. Like, if it's free, like, I'll do it, And I'm the biggest guy there by at least, like, 70 pounds. These guys are, like, pretty small, white belts and blue belts, and I walk on there. And, bro, like, I've been fighting my whole life. I was fighting on the streets, just, like, scrapping. Like, I've always just thought, like, ego-wise, like, I was unstoppable. That's always how I felt at a 19, 20-year-old kid, So I get on the mats, we're drilling a little bit, playing, doing this, that, and the other, and then at the end we spar. And I'm like, asking the coach, like, what do we do? And he's like, oh, just get on top, try to control, try to submit them maybe. I'm like, okay. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to kill these guys. Like I have 100 pounds on him. Like they got nothing on me, you know? We start, boof, the guy's like already does a little sweep. He's on my back. And I'm like, this guy's like a little fucking backpack. What the fuck? I can't get him off. Puts in a choke. I kind of feel like I'm being choked, but I'm like holding it. And I'm like, oh, I can still breathe. Like I'm good. Next thing you know, I get fucking put to sleep. And I'm like, I remember waking up and just seeing like a circle of faces looking down on me. And the guy's holding my legs. He's like, bro, you okay? You okay? And I'm like, what the fuck happened? They're like, if you feel like you can't breathe, tap. And I was like, I didn't feel like I couldn't breathe. And he's like, oh, that was a blood choke.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, like it happens, bro. Like if you feel like you can't, you're starting to like fade out, tap. And I'm like, wait, I got put to sleep? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, my mind literally just went poof. And I was like, wait, that guy put me to sleep? He's like, yeah. And the kid was like, I'm sorry. He was young too. He was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, bro, that was fucking amazing. I was like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And from that moment on, I was like obsessed with jiu-jitsu. I was like, everyone needs to know this. I was like, you literally could have taken my wallet and raped me and I wouldn't have known.
You realized your size was irrelevant.
It didn't even matter. And I was so shocked by it. Like I said, that dude soaking wet who put me to sleep was easily 140 in a gi. I had over 100 pounds on him and he slept me. So, and it wasn't like all of a sudden, oh, I want to be a fighter. It was just like, jiu-jitsu is incredible. I need to understand what this is. And went home afterwards. I signed up like the full membership. I was like, yeah, I'll be here every day. Went home and I spent 8 hours on Google just researching jiu-jitsu, watching YouTube videos, watching the history of it, reading it. I'm like, this is amazing. I was like, how come I never knew this? You know, and then I was training 3 times a day, every day, jiu-jitsu, and not with any goal of doing anything with it.
What, you're still probably, 20 years old at this
20,
point?
yeah, 20 years old. And so then I'm coming to the gym more regularly and I'm seeing, you know, they have striking classes, they have MMA classes, and, you know, I have the unlimited membership so I can go to any class. But I was just doing jiu-jitsu. And then there would be other MMA guys who would jump in and they're like, hey, do you fight? You're a big guy. And we had like, for some reason at that time, that gym had maybe 5 or 6 pro heavyweights, big boys. And I was a heavyweight. So they were like, hey, I'm getting ready for a fight. Is there any way like we could get some work together so that I can like work on some things? And I'm like, I'm 20 years old. I'm like, fuck yeah, like let's play, you know? And so then they invite me to the striking aspect. And I haven't struck in a few years, but you know, they didn't anticipate me to know what I was doing and I fucked everybody up, you know? And they're like, you know how to strike? And I was like, bro, I've been doing this since I was a kid. Like I don't do it now. And they're like, bro, you're a really good striker. And I'm like, well, thank you. They're like, you should do MMA.
Were you using your karate style at that time?
Yeah.
Because it's all you know, or did you switch it up a bit?
I mean, my style at that time is like a blend of karate, Muay Thai, and boxing, you know, and like my style is very unique because of that blend. But they were just like, bro, the coaches were like, we like what we see from you. Like, you should not only help our guys get better, but if you want to fight, like we could potentially get you some fights. And at the time, and I'm not kidding, like growing up as a kid, my whole family, we loved the fight game. We've watched all the big boxing, K1, UFC, Pride, you name it. We would always watch it.
Yeah, because this is still 2010. This is pre-McGregor era. So
oh, for sure.
UFC's not blown up on the scale it is.
But we're talking like even in the 90s, like K1, you know, like all these big, because in Asia it was just on regular TV. And my dad's
your Baz Ruttens and your...
Yes, exactly. So I grew up watching fighting. I've known fighting my whole life really, but my parents would always emphasize, you never want to be a professional fighter. It's the worst job. It's tough. You don't get paid a lot. It's dangerous, you know, like all that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be a pro fighter. I want to be a rugby player, you know, like da-da-da. So when it came to that moment where the coaches were like, you know, we could get you an amateur fight. Would you like to fight? And I was like, nah, like I just want to kind of just learn and do it for fun, you know? So I kind of like backed off on that. And then 6 months went by, I got my blue belt. And then by that time, so I don't know if you remember, but the state of New York for the longest time, it was illegal to host MMA events.
Yeah.
And the only way that they would do them was, as you're probably familiar, Indian reservations. So on the border of Niagara Falls, they have an Indian reservation, and there's a place there called Raging Wolf, and that's where they would host their shows. It was in a hotel casino. It was actually really awesome. And a lot of the guys that I was help training, that's where they would compete. So I would go all the time and support and watch the boys and was just there, you know, feeling the atmosphere, seeing how well they were doing and being like, I could probably do that, right? You know, and then finally one day my coach was like, was like, I think we should get you an MMA fight, at least just one, just to say, like, you can say, like, you've done one, you know, had an MMA fight. So I was like, yeah, I'm down. I was like, let me just train a little bit more, like, grappling, so I feel more confident, and then we'll do it. And then my buddy had, like, a big-ass Muay Thai fight. It was, like, Canada versus USA, like, a border event. It was, like, this...
At, like, Niagara, or...?
It was in Buffalo, but it was, like, it was hosted, like, on our side, but... Yeah, it was like basically the Niagara Falls Canadian boys versus like the Buffalo.
Were you crossing paths with Niagara top team?
Yes.
You know this guy?
Yes.
Maybe we know some of you.
Do you know Matt?
Do you know Mike Malott?
Yes. Oh. I don't know him personally. I obviously know him now, but I didn't know him back then.
It's funny. He was my neighbor, and I sponsored him before he entered the UFC because
very cool.
We're 4 years different. And I saw him in, is it Cage Fury or Fury FC?
Fury.
Where he won.
Uh-huh.
And I saw him coming up. And before he entered, I'm like, because he fought Hakeem Dawodu.
Oh, yeah.
And he was training.
It was crazy because he fought 45 and now he's a 70.
And then he went to Alpha Male.
Yep.
And I'm like, why
he was
is
a
this
coach
guy not in the UFC? And then I saw him, and then he came back out of nowhere and fought at Fury Cage.
Yep. He was a champion Fury, I think.
He was an 8-1 underdog and beat the guy in 2 seconds. Because I'm like, he's still good. And then he won the fight, and I called him like, you're sponsored. He's like, yeah, I don't know, I might go to the UFC. This is before Contender Series. And then he came up, and then I couldn't sponsor him anywhere because we were still building. And then he fucking fights Neil Magny, and he should have won that.
Oh man,
did you watch that fight?
Yes, I did.
I know.
I had money on Mike.
I sent him a message. I'm like, anyways, but he 10-8'd him 2 in a row,
and then gassed
because, and this is my theory, and I don't like to push. You let them do their thing. He's in Toronto. He's in his hometown. He's 10-8'd him 2. He's going for the knockout, and he gassed.
Yeah.
So it's so crazy to think about because Mike would be top 6, and he would literally be there with Jack Della right now. But just because of that slight thing, I think it knocked his career back 1.5 years.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially, because his next fight, it's not even a ranked guy. Anyway, so that's something else. Because I think, was it Gavin Tucker? Or there's the girls out of there, too.
Jasmine.
Jasmine.
I know Jasmine, and I know her boyfriend.
Okay. I don't know them. I just follow because seeing it through
Canadian scene. Yeah, no. So it was funny because back when we were doing the Buffalo, because I used to cross train over in Niagara Falls when we go over. Yeah. And at that time, so their current head coach, his name's Matt. He was like a fighter at the time too. So we were just cross training, and fast forward, they came to Vegas to come and train at Syndicate, and I'm like, what's up? Like, it's been a minute, but the martial arts community is such a small community, so when it does like come full circle like that, it's actually really cool.
Especially if you're right in Buffalo and Niagara. Sorry to interrupt there. Back to your Indian reservation. So you're going. This is where you're going for your first MMA fight. Yeah.
So basically, I had agreed that I would take an MMA fight, and I was actually helping a buddy of mine. His name was Drew Grazaradze. He's a massive heavyweight Muay Thai guy, big boy, 265, very physical guy, and I was helping him get ready for this cross-border matchup. The week of the fight, I accidentally broke his nose. I threw a knee when he went down, and it caught him on the nose and blasted his nose. So my coach is like, we don't have anyone to fill in. You have to take the spot. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, oh, shit. So I got thrusted into that main event and knocked that guy out in the first round. And then everyone was like, oh, fuck, like, you got to do MMA, dude. And I was like, I already agreed I was going to do MMA, so let's do it.
So this is like an amateur MMA fight, like in a cage, or
that was an amateur Muay Thai fight.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just took it on short notice. That was like my first official amateur fight since like I'd done all the things that I'd been doing since I was a kid, like all the rugby, all the football. Like this was my first amateur back in Muay Thai. And then I told the coaches already, yeah, let's do the MMA. Get me a wrestler, because I was like I'm very like OCD. In my brain, I'm like, I never wrestled. Like, I know how to do jiu-jitsu, I know how to do striking, but I was like, I never really wrestled. So I put a lot of emphasis on my wrestling and was like, I want to fight a wrestler. Because if I'm going to do this MMA shit, I got to be able to fucking wrestle. So they gave me a high school wrestler, some kid from Buffalo, and knocked him out in 23 seconds. It was crazy because John Jones was at that event, Rashad Evans was at that event, and they were still like relative nobodies. They weren't even like champs or nothing in the UFC yet. Like, cause John Jones is from fucking Rochester.
Yeah.
So that's only like less than an hour away. So he would come in and he'd get up to some fun stuff out there. And Rashad Evans is also a Rochester guy. So he would also come in and he was like making his way up, you know? So I seen them, and like the atmosphere at the time was like, I felt like I was where I needed to be. You know, I felt very comfortable getting ready for the fight. I didn't feel nervous. I felt really in my element. And then from then on, it just was like, all right, let's keep going. Let's keep fighting. So I accrued a record of 6-0 as an amateur. I fought 3 times in the States, and then I graduated college at the University of Buffalo. I have a degree in communications and computer science. Basically when I was in school, my whole emphasis was like, I don't want to work for nobody. I don't want to work in an office. I don't want to be stuck in a building. So I set up a business. I was working in IT and just was able to just work wherever there was an internet connection. And then a little bit later, I was like, do I want to be a professional fighter? Like, I'm 6-0 as an amateur. Am I ready? Like, is this...
What age is this now? 21?
23.
23.
Yeah, 23 years old, and I'm like, I'm undefeated as an amateur. I'm like, I think it's time maybe to start getting paid for this, you know? And but then I also said to myself, I need to test myself against, like, the best in the world. You know what I mean? Like, I've trained with good people. I've been all over, but I want to train with like champions. I want to be like tested by the best so that I could at least say to myself, like, I can go down this path. I don't want to get exposed, you know, later on. So I was a huge fan, or still am, of, you know, Alistair Overeem, Rashad Evans, like, and at that time they were at the Black Zillions. I don't know if you remember that gym.
I think it was Kamaru Usman was
yes,
there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So I was just a fanboy. And I said to myself, look, if I'm going to go down this road and be a professional, I'm going to show up to that gym. I'm going to move to Boca Raton, Florida, and I'm going to start training with them. And if I can hang with them, then I'll fucking go pro. So fucking pack my bags, move my ass out to Boca Raton, and started training with them. You know, I showed up there as a 6-0 amateur and told them, look, I want to fight as a pro. So they gave me the opportunity. I was training with some of the best guys on the planet at the time, and it just gave me that self-confidence to know that I can do this. You know, like in the beginning, I was obviously very nervous. You know, got Henry Hoof telling me, you know, oh, be tough, you know, do this, do that, and I'm like, fuck, man, like these guys are the guys I watch on TV fighting. You know, like it was. I've never really had that moment before. Like when I first walked into Black Zillions, the first person that came up to me and shook my hand was Rashad Evans, and I was like so honored because he was the champ. I was like, oh my God, like what a humble guy. Like I'm just a nobody, you know? And then I just became like a part of the fixture. And the only unfortunate thing that happened was I couldn't get a fight. I couldn't make my pro debut. So in 16 months, I had 7 fights fall through. I went to 2 of those fights to make weight. I made weight, and my 2 opponents did not show up to weigh-ins. I moved to the U.S. under the impression like everyone wanted to fight. You know what I mean? Like, I just thought everyone was game. I was like, you're trying to make it to the show, like, you got to fight, you know? So, because I had trouble getting fights in Asia.
Why would they fall out? Opponents might find out your striking ability and drop out, or?
To be honest with you, I don't have a definitive answer, but I'm just going to hypothesize. I think it's because I have a Russian name. Khabib was starting to become a superstar at the time, and I trained out of the Black Zillions. And I'm 0-0. They're 0-0, 1-0, 0-1. So they're really trying to build their records.
It's not like back then they would have had a lot of tape on you.
No, there was none.
Right.
There was none. You know, this is like 2015, 2016. So by that time, like social media wasn't like it is now. You know, like it's so easy to look someone up and find what you need to find. Back then, I had maybe like 2 fights on my computer that I got from the promoter when I did fight amateur, just because I wanted it. But yeah, it was different. And then, like I said, I made weight. I was just like, I literally thought it was like a sign from a higher power. Like, you're not supposed to fight, bro. Like, is this like what's supposed to happen? And I was in a relationship at the time, and I was going through it. Like, I was kind of going through it. Like, fuck, what do I do with myself?
You couldn't get this fight, so this is kind of a sign from up above.
I thought like, yeah, maybe like this isn't meant to be, you know, maybe like, maybe I should just not even go down that path. And in Hong Kong, if you are out of Hong Kong for more than 4 years,
you lose your residency.
So it was coming on that time, so I had to go back. So I was with my ex at the time, and I was like, hey, let's go back to Hong Kong, just like pop in for a couple weeks. And
how long? You just have to go a couple weeks. Or
yeah, is there a day technically. A day, right? Yeah, you just got to make sure you go through.
You just swipe your card.
Exactly.
And that's important. You don't want to lose that.
No. why not?
It's
right?
so hard to get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I basically went back home just to say what's up, and then I ran into somebody, and they're like, "Bro, you're a fighter, right? You're trying to get a fight." And he's like, "I got to introduce you to this cat. Like, he's an American. He's got a lot of contacts for MMA in Asia." I was like, "Cool, let me meet him." Met him. That's the homie Matthew Polino. He's based in Singapore. I'm about to go see him. He's the ambassador of boxing for Singapore. Very cool cat. And he got me my pro debut. I basically
In the U.S.
No, it was in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in Hong Kong, and it was with just MMA. It was a short notice opportunity, and that's actually how I ended up meeting the Hickmans. I was like, I can't do my camp in Hong Kong. I need to go out to Thailand and get that work. So I went out to Tiger, and at that time, 2016, 2017, it was like, it was a different time. Like, it was like, seeing Peter Yan, you're seeing like Rafael Fiziev. None of these guys are in the UFC.
Started,
yeah. So it was like just monsters, dude. Like, as you know, like everyone, that gym to this day is still the hardest gym that I've ever trained.
Oh, you
at.
would have seen. Do you know Glenn Spar?
Of course, I got so many rounds of sparring with Glenn.
Glenn, this is episode like 150. Glenn was on episode 2.
That's awesome. That's
so if
awesome.
he might be watching.
Glenn's the man, man. Glenn
Because we
was
built
a
this
beast.
during COVID, and like, yeah, I don't know how I crossed paths with Glenn. Anyways, he was on like episode 2. Like,
that's awesome.
No idea what we were doing.
Yeah, he's in Sydney now. He's in Australia.
Yeah, but he went back like
a while back.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, he's been there.
Or
a while.
around then.
But yeah, no, it was Glenn was I sparred with him a lot actually, getting ready for that fight.
He's a big boy though.
Big boy. It was crazy. He fought 170. Even at 185, he was humongous. Yeah. So it was good work. I got a lot of good work with them, and I was fighting against this Korean cat who had just won the 2017 Sambo World Championships. He's the first Korean to ever go to Russia and win the Sambo World Championships, and I didn't even know that at the time. And usually when Asian fighters, like Japanese or Korean fighters, fight in places like the Philippines or Hong Kong or Taiwan, usually like it's just to build their record. The level of MMA or fighters out of those regions are not high. So it was just in the right place at the right time. My buddy lined this up and, fought this dude, knocked him out in the second round. And his manager, who didn't even speak English at the time, came up to me and was like, "Hey, you want to fight in Korea? I'll be your manager." And I'm like, "Yes, please. Like, any opportunity for me to fight frequent, let's do it." So he signed me up, brought me out to Korea. I fought a bunch of times in Korea, became a 185-pound champ out there.
What was the promotion out there?
AFC. It was Angels Fighting Championship.
I think a lot of the Tiger boy they were fighting on. I think Glenn was fighting there.
Yeah,
wasn't
he's fought before.
He fought. Did he fight John Park?
No, he fought him in Taiwan.
Okay.
Jun Yong Park.
That
Yeah,
was
the
a
Iron
crazy
Turtle.
fight.
He got boxed up.
Yeah.
That was a bad one. His face was like.
It was a CTE fucking fight.
Yeah, it was a tough fight. Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that one. Yeah, that was in Taiwan. And that was literally, if Glenn had, basically the winner of that goes to UFC.
And Park,
he's solid.
I think he recently has lost a couple, but he was really on a
surge.
trajectory. Yeah,
he did very well. He's actually fighting my current teammate, Brad Tavares. In October, the 12th of October. So, the Iron, I think it's the Iron Turtle. Yeah, he's a tough ass dude. But yeah, so I got myself out in Korea and started to build myself there with that manager, and then they were like, okay, let's do another big event in Hong Kong. And I don't know if you remember, it was 2018 when they did the protests in Hong Kong when they shut down Hong Kong. So they basically had like set this whole event up for me to main event. Had this guy from Kyrgyzstan flying in to fight me. I'd sold like almost 600 tickets. Like, it was a big ass event. And I did my camp in Ukraine. I was doing my full camp in Ukraine.
Why?
My dad, so it was super random. So the fight gets announced and my dad comes in and he's like, would you be interested in doing a camp in Ukraine? And I'm like, why? How? And he's like, well, I know the coach of Usyk and Lomachenko, their boxing coach, and like that whole area of like wrestling and all that. He's like, I have all the contacts there. If you want, not only does it cost nothing to train out there, you'll get a good experience and you'll go to my hometown. I'd never been there. So ended up going to Ukraine. I did like an 8-week boxing camp and a 6-week wrestling camp, basically in conjunction for this fight. And then 1 week before the fight, they call me and they canceled the event. They canceled the whole show. I was gutted, man. I had people from all over flying in. And so it was like, yeah, it sucked balls. And then I made like a whole thing on like social media. Like I wrote all this shit, like apologizing to my, my friends and fans and family and whatnot that the fight's not happening. And some random Pakistani matchmaker reaches out to me and he's like, hey, I have a fight for you in 5 days. UA Warriors. Will you take it? And I'm like, I'm sitting in a cafe eating pizza, reading this message on Facebook Messenger, like, fuck, all right. I'm like, how much? And I think he offered me like $5,000 to take this fight on 5 days. I was like, bro, like, you double that money, I'll take the fight. So they offered me $10K, and I was like, they booked me a flight from the Ukraine to Dubai. And I went out there, and I don't know if you're familiar, Munir Lazez. He also fought in the UFC. We fought each other before. Yeah, I took the fight on 5 days' notice. Unfortunately, I lost. Very weird fight. I don't know why the ref stopped it. I was never hurt. I actually hurt him. And then at the end of the first round, he landed a couple ground and pound shots, and the ref just like kind of jumped in and stopped the fight. It was weird. Very weird ending.
The time was over? Or?
No. He stopped I got TKO'd. And then I didn't complain because I thought, oh, did I get knocked out? And then my corner was like, bro, you didn't even get knocked out. And I watched the film back and was like, the fuck? It was weird. It was a weird situation. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but
gambling.
I don't know. That guy was a main event. He like sold out the arena. He was from Tunisia. It was actually one of the coolest atmospheres I've ever walked in to fight at. There was like at least those massive 30 drums, where they hit with like massive sticks. This bro had like a whole fucking party going on. So it was all for him. Yeah. And it was just weird ending. And I asked for a rematch, and then boom, COVID, dung. And then at that time, I was like, fuck, do I go back to Hong Kong? And I'm like, no, fuck Hong Kong. I can't even get a fight there. So then I finally was like, it's time to go to Vegas. I'm like, if I'm trying to go to the UFC, if I'm trying to do this for real, like I got to be in Vegas, especially now that things are a little bit weird with Hong Kong and this COVID shit. So I quickly jumped ship to Vegas, and then COVID like fully hits in March. And I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to fight again. Nobody does. And then the UFC is like the only promotion doing shows with the Jacksonville card. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. So I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing, And at the time, I'd gotten with some new coaches. I was boxing a lot in Vegas, and they were still fighting in Mexico. So you could still get boxing fights in Mexico. So I was actually, like, we're talking like this close to like stopping MMA completely and just focusing fully on boxing. And I had like a team. I had like people that were willing to just basically build my career. And it was the weirdest, situation. So my first gym in Vegas was Syndicate MMA with John Wood. During COVID, obviously the gym closed, so I was doing the boxing when I could. And he just reaches out of the blue when he opens the gym again after this COVID stuff. He's like, hey, bro, like we're looking for like a kids coach, like a kids class coach, like for kickboxing. Like, would you be interested? And I'm like, bro, I got nothing going on right now. Sure, a couple hours a day, I'll do it. No worries, So I signed up, and he's like, hey, come in, like we'll hit some pads and like finalize it. I was like, cool. So I came in, hit some pads with him. We took a photo. I uploaded it to my social media. Boom. My boxing coach reaches out to me maybe 20 minutes after I posted that photo with this long ass message, basically telling me he doesn't want to work with me anymore.
Just because you're there.
Just because so one thing about Vegas and the combat scene, it's very like
territorial.
It's very political.
Yeah.
So apparently those two had a relationship in the past where John fucked him over, la-di-da-di-da.
I think every area is like that.
Yeah, so basically that guy just kind of was like, I'm not fucking with you no more. And I was shocked, bro. I was like mentally convinced like I'm going to go box, So he just like completely deaded me. And I was like, bro, he offered me a job. Like, I'm not turning my back on you. Like, I was trying to explain it to him, but he was stubborn, whatever. So we parted ways, and I fully went with Syndicate. And 2 months later, I got a call, and they're like, because I had a good relationship with UA Warriors when I took that short notice fight. I did a lot of like promo stuff for them, telling them how, saying how good the promotion is and how amazing Dubai is. They like that. So they're like, look, we understand the situation. You weren't happy. We'll bring you back when we can, and we'll give you a good fight. I was like, cool. I appreciate that. So they reached out, and they're like, you want to take a fight in Dubai during COVID? I was like, please, And at that time, it was kind of ironic. the guy that I was supposed to fight was John Wood's best friend is Daniel Rubenstein. He's a manager, Ruby, and that was his fighter. So John and Ruby were kind of going back and forth jokingly during like camp, like, my guys.
He does all the management for tons of people.
Yeah,
here.
Peter Jan. He was my first. He was who got me to the UFC. He was my first manager, and
oh my god, I'm gonna butcher this one. Sayat. It's so bad because he's been on the podcast. Sayat's been on the podcast. So I'm assuming you guys are all connected as well.
Yes, sir. And so basically they were kind of just shit talking back and forth. Like, oh, Sasha's gonna fuck up your guy. Nah, my guy's gonna fuck up Sasha. It was kind of a little bit of banter back and forth. And while this is all going on, I don't have management at the time, so I'm kind of being hunted by Ruby a little bit and by Iridium. So there's like a couple of them are like, yeah, we'll see how this fight goes, and after that we'll sign you, kind of thing. And I'm like, cool. So I go to Dubai. And I'm obviously with John, I'm with Danny, and we're talking shit. All this is happening. Next day, my original opponent gets COVID. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like, Danny, like, what are we gonna do here? Like, I was like, your guy's scared. He got COVID. He's kissing too many guys. What's going on? You know? And so then they get me a short notice, a Brazilian black belt, on 2 days' notice. He takes the fight. I spark him in a minute and a half, and then Danny's like, come here. He's like, you're with me. You know, I'll take you. I'll take you where you want to go. He was fully into me after that, you know. And so I signed with Ruby, and then came back to Vegas and was like, all right, we're back in. We got to fight, you know, maybe a couple more fights, and then we can get in the UFC, you know. And I got COVID. I was actually training with Sean Strickland at the time, and he wanted me to corner him for his fight against Jack Marshman. So I went to go and do the COVID test before you go into the bubble. And I tested positive. So I got COVID. So I got put in quarantine for 10 days and was just kind of like chilling at home, you know. Then I came back to work after that 10-day period, teaching the kids class, and obviously my phone's away. And John walks in and he's looking at me like somebody got killed or something. I was like, what's up? And he's like, bro, have you seen your phone? And I'm like, no. I was like, why? He's like, I was like, he's trying to trick me or something. Like, I was like, no, it's in my bag. He's like, go look at your phone now. I was like, okay. I was kind of worried, you know, and I went and looked at my phone, message from my manager, UFC, 10 days.
Contender Series?
No, or UFC 255.
255. Oh, okay.
Yeah, UFC 255. Louis Cosi. He was an undefeated prospect, 7 knockouts, 7-0. He got on the Contender Series and nobody wanted to fight him. So he's like, you want it? And I was like, I don't even know who it is, but yes, absolutely. You know, on 10 days, you know, it kind of seems to be my specialty, taking things on short notice. Coming off of COVID, like, I didn't care. I just needed the opportunity, you know. And, you know, went in there, got the fight of the night, knocked him out in the 3rd round, got the bonus. You know, it was like exactly what I dreamed, you know, exactly what I wanted, you know, and, you know, got where I wanted to go. That was the goal, get to the UFC, make a splash. And, yeah, that year, 2020, was a weird one, but at the end, it fucking worked out, you know, exactly how I planned. And then at the time, I was in a relationship with that same girl that I went to Hong Kong with, and she's from France. So during COVID, we were apart. So I had to go and see her during that time when we were apart. After I fought, came back to Vegas, and was getting ready for my next fight against Impa Kasanganay. Fought him in my second fight in the UFC. Unfortunately, I got submitted. It was a weird fight. And leading up to that fight, I tore my hamstring. Michael Chiesa tore my hamstring with a knee bar. And I just was trying my best to just navigate around my training for the hamstring. I could strike, no problem. I just couldn't grapple. If someone grabbed my leg, I'd have a lot of problem with it. So in my brain, I'm like, I can fight. But in reality, like, I can't, you know? And so that fight against Impa, like, I kind of felt that problem. I fought him in February. I fought him in April. I was lying. I fought him in April. And then after that fight, when I lost, I was like, fuck, man, I'm not ready to fight. Like, I need to heal this. So I went with the PI, did everything I could, you know, PRP, stem cells, injections, the whole 9. Things were starting to get better. And I got my 3rd fight against Ramiz Brahimai, world champion jiu-jitsu guy. So I'm like, okay, we know what's coming. Grappling, hamstrings feeling strong, like, we're good. 2 weeks out before the fight, the kid that Mike Malott beat, do you remember?
Which one?
Israeli, Shimon.
Oh, and he's Canadian too.
No, he's Israeli.
Yeah. Oh, and he was the guy that was up and coming, and Mike took him out in like 20 seconds.
Like subbed him like real quick.
The fucking Team Alpha Male
so
guillotine.
Shimon Smatritsky, who's an absolute beast.
Yeah.
He's a freak. That guy's he's so young and he's a future star in the making. But he tore my hamstring again.
Training.
Yeah, but none of it was on purpose. You know, it just happened. And I was 2 weeks out from the fight. And Frank was living with me at the time. So we were wrestling a lot, but I was just like...
This is in Vegas?
Yeah, Frank lived with me in Vegas for over a year.
What year? This would have been COVID then?
Yep.
2021. Such a blur. How many... Are we still in COVID?
Yeah, it feels like it, right?
I've never left here since COVID.
Oh, okay.
I haven't left the border in 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm like, I'm not getting locked out of here.
Yeah, I feel you. But that was the reason. So you know how much Frank travels and the boys have fights in Vegas, especially back then.
So he wanted to be there, so he couldn't.
He didn't want to have to do the quarantine.
Yeah.
So he's like, bro, can I stay with you? I was like, absolutely. You know, and I was like, it'd be an honor to have you in the house because I can fucking wrestle with you. You know what I mean? So
just don't tear my hamstring.
That's the thing. We were working a lot to try to prevent, like, just let my shit heal. Let's work on the other. It was just so annoying. Like, looking back in hindsight, like, injury's the worst, man. And then in that fight, same thing. He took me down. I had no strength in that left leg. Got on my back and put me to sleep, man. I refused to tap, went lights out, and it was just one of those moments where I was just like, fuck, you know.
The management, they couldn't feed you like strikers?
Dude, that's what I was saying, dog. Like, okay, so the thing is with management, it depends who you are, you know, and...
I mean, like, when you're starting to come in, you know, you got to build a highlight reel.
I agree.
What's the point of fighting grapplers to build a highlight reel? Because no one's going to notice it. Anyways, if you get them.
I agree, bro. Like, my dad said that. A couple people said that. Like, why are they getting you grapplers? And, like, yeah, the matchmaking for me in that moment wasn't great. We had, like, a list of people we wanted to fight. Like, I wanted to fight Alex Morono. Like, I wanted to fight guys that, you know, were strikers. There were fighters who called me out after my first fight saying, like, oh, he's an exciting fighter. He got the bonus. Like, I want to fight with a guy like that because potential to get bonus, you know? So, yeah, so I got submitted back-to-back. And then, again, I was like, I'm not fighting again. I had one more fight on my contract. I'm like, I'm not fighting again until this shit is good. So I went through the whole process again. So this was August, September, October, November, December, January. 5 months. I didn't do nothing but rehab. Then I get a call, Jack Della Maddalena, Anaheim. I'm like, let's go.
Shit.
Do my COVID test positive. So I'm not allowed to fight. And then maybe 2 weeks later, I got released.
Really?
Just
because you're injured.
They just released me and basically said, oh, we have contender series guys coming in. We need to make some spaces on the roster. And then Sean Shelby said, look, if you go out now and bang out 3 wins, we'll re-sign you. So I said, okay, why not? So
what weight? Okay, so this is
170 pounds.
Yeah,
welterweight.
Welterweight, yeah.
And so I went out. I fought 3 times in 4 months, back to back to back. I won my first fight, TKO first round in New Orleans. And then I took a fight again with 10 days notice in Las Vegas main event. I won a decision. And then my third fight, there was a month in between, and I was in Thailand during COVID filming a movie with Cowboy. Cowboy Cerrone was in a movie, and he was getting ready for his last fight of his career with Jim Miller.
Yep.
It was originally supposed to be Joe Lozon, if you remember, and then Joe Lozon, like, injured his knee at weigh-ins. I don't know if you remember, taking his shoes off before stepping on the scales. He injured his knee, and the fight fell through in Austin. But I had been traveling with Cowboy for this movie just to keep him in shape and sharp for his fight. And so I was just out here kind of like, you know, just fucking training and getting ready. And then I came back to Vegas, and then this fight opportunity came in South Carolina. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm right here. I go and smash this guy. I'm right back where I believed I need to be. Went and fought this kid. He shot about 40 shots on me, kept trying to take me down. I defended every single shot until the end of the third round. He took me down, and he choked me out. And it was, man, it was like I went 2 steps forward, but then like 5 steps back. So that's how it felt, kind of like what you said with Mike Malott, you know. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, you're right there.
right there, dude. And I knew I was better than this guy. It was just one mistake, and it got me, you know. And so I was bummed out, dude. I was like, fuck, what's my situation now? I probably got to win another 3, you know, just to even get myself in the picture. I was like, and on top of that, bro, my debut, I walked away with like 90K, you know, and then
that goes fast.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not about that. Like, the money situation is not a thing, but it's like, I just made 90 grand and now I'm fighting for 1,500. You know what I mean? So it's like, fuck, bro. Like, and it wasn't the money thing. I don't fight for money. Like, that's never been a thing for me. But it was like a bitter pill to swallow. It's like, fuck, bro. It's like, this is tough, you know? And then I'm sitting kind of in a situation now where I'm like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Like, you know, what's the next move? What's the next step? And then Karate Combat just slid in my DMs. They're like, hey, bro, we have a fight for you in 10 days if you want to take it. And I'm like, I'm down. You know, I wasn't thinking of Karate Combat. It never even crossed really my mind that I would be competing.
What year are we at? 23?
This
22?
is end of 2022.
Right. Yes.
End of 2022. So it's like December. I thought it was December 10 is when I
about
fought.
32-ish at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so I signed with them, knocked the guy out in the first round. They pay good. And I was like, huh. I was like, this is kind of cool. So, yeah. So then I signed with them, signed a nice little contract with them. And at the time, Ruby and Syndicate were kind of like, I mean, at that time, Karate Combat wasn't as mainstream as it is now. So they kind of looked at it like, meh. And we'll focus on like the big boys getting in the UFC, like that kind of thing. So they kind of just ignored me a little bit. I didn't take it like in a bad way. I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to go do my thing, you know? And then I was dating this girl, and this is a different girl. I had already broken up with my ex. I was just going out with this chick, and she's like, hey, I'm going to invite my best friend and her boyfriend. We'll do a little double date. I was like, cool. Went on this date, and happens to be an agent for Vayner. So we get talking. He's like, oh, what's your situation? He's like, oh, I've watched some of your fights. Da, da, da. I know about you. Da, da, da. I'm like, cool. And, you know, what's the situation with Vayner? What you guys like? And he's breaking it down for me, telling me who they work with, some of the deals that they do. And I'm like, bro, that sounds amazing. Like, the one thing with Ruby, he's got a team of like 2 or 3 people, very small. Vayner have a team of 16 that work just on MMA. So they got guys looking for sponsors. They got guys.
Yeah, and they're probably massaging your entire social.
Exactly.
Like, you can focus on the fight.
Dude, exactly. They're teaching me things that I would have never even thought. They're giving me advice. Like, we have like social media managers sending us, oh, these are the trending songs. These are the trending reels.
Which builds you up, builds your brand up. Every time you fight, more sales, more money, da-da-da.
Exactly. So I looked at that and I said, I love what you guys are doing. I'm 100% interested. So I spoke to Ruby. I said, look, we've had a great relationship. I'm looking at other options. We amicably split ways, and then I signed with Vayner. Then Vayner's first fight that they got me was bare knuckle MMA, game bred. I fought at the end of 2024. Wait, we're in 2024 now. 2023, November last year. I was so excited for this opportunity to fight bare knuckle MMA against Francisco Trinaldo. I was in the best shape of my life, in phenomenal shape actually, and a minute and a half into the fight, I tore my ACL.
Fuck.
Yeah, freak injury. Wasn't even, you know, it's one thing if the dude's going for a heel hook or he's doing, nah, it was just a wrestling position and my knee just went. Absolutely gutted, bro. Like, did not anticipate. I would have rather been fucking flatline, knocked the fuck out than go out that way. But the cool thing is with Vayner, man, I've never been a guy that really got a lot of sponsors. I've just been focused on fighting, you know, and they brought in a lot of money for me in that fight. And when they're making sure I'm good, but when they finally told me like how much that I was going to make from sponsors for this fight, I was like blown away. And well,
they know how to do the math on impressions.
Exactly.
And
they have all the contacts, you know, and it was just cool, you know. It was a cool experience just to have like the support that way, because it's like literally like I was guaranteed an amount of money, and then obviously coming out and losing, and then I'm like, whoa, I just got basically my win check and more, you know. And it was a nice feeling, and game bred MMA money is bigger than UFC money, just because I guess it's a little bit more brutal. But yeah, it was just a really cool experience overall with Vayner. And then obviously now I've never had a serious injury before in my career. This ACL tear was a new one. So I was kind of going through the battle, like, am I getting surgery? Am I not getting surgery? Ended up not getting surgery. And, I was just working my way back. And, there were moments that I was trying to make the comeback. My knee just kept swelling up. I would like go spar, do 5 rounds, do great. And then for 3 days, I couldn't bend my knee. My shit would just blow up. And I was like, if this is like how I am for the rest of my life, like, I don't think I can fight anymore, Like, that was going in my mind. Like, I was like, I'm not putting myself in a situation where I'm one-legged, Like, I have to be training at least 6 days a week. So there was about a 3-month period, like, where I was kind of bugging out a bit. And I guess because of injuring my right knee, I was like so hypersensitive, like, of trying to keep it good, that I actually tore my meniscus in this knee, like, coming back, So I actually ended up getting surgery on this knee 3 months ago. Well, just a scope to clean it up.
Yeah, I just did PRP on mine.
Got you, yeah.
So I put on like 10 kg.
You got to get on the BPC 157 TV.
I'm on it.
There you go.
I got golfer. I have like the gayest fucking injuries. I got golfer's elbow. Like,
dude, I have the same problem.
Yeah, I can't do it.
It's rotation.
I'm at Bangtao usually 5 days a week, just doing like working out and hit, but I can't even do a push-up right now.
Oh yeah,
my
it's
elbow
just flying. It
flares up.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I'm just walking around the neighborhood fighting off street dogs trying to attack me. That's tough.
Bro, injuries are the worst.
But
bro.
that stuff, when you're rehabbing it, I guess in the UFC, I think BPC is not allowed.
It's not
which
allowed.
is so strange.
Stupidest thing.
Because
it's not a performance
it
enhancer.
It's really working.
Exactly. And so, yeah, when I had this knee surgery, I came back 4 weeks after and was like already back wrestling. After taking the BPC 157 and TV 500. Like I said, I had this surgery 3 months ago. I'm fighting next week. And like I said, that moment where I was like, now my knee isn't swelling up, I'm like, thank God. And I think it's all thanks to TV 500 and BPC 157.
Yeah, I got both of them. Were you doing site injection?
I did a bit in the beginning, but now the doctor I was dealing with was just like, you can just do belly fat.
I find I get a rash.
When you do it in the belly?
Yeah, like fucking like flares up, like red.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. So I've been just doing it here, but I use like the smallest insulin needle.
The insulin needle, yeah.
Like the littlest little. It doesn't feel good. You're just like, fuck. It's not a great time.
I've never done it in the elbow, but I've done it straight in the knee a few times. But yeah, dude, it's like, I feel like a little mad scientist, because I'll tell you something that was really crazy. So when I had surgery on the left knee for the scope, afterwards I went and saw the surgeon, and she like basically tells you, like, they give you like a printout conclusion, basically hypothesis on everything that happened. Like, oh, this is what we saw, this is what we did, and then pictures and everything. So I'm reading everything while I'm waiting for her to come in, and I read this one part that says ACL tear. And I'm like, but that's my right knee. And then, so she comes in, she talks about everything, and she mentions nothing about an ACL tear. And I'm like, excuse me, doc, like, I see this mention of an ACL tear. Like, what's this? And she's like, oh yeah, you tore your ACL in your left knee. I was like, what? And she's like, oh no, it's been torn, but it's healed. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, ACLs can heal? And she's like, well, in your case, yeah. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And then she showed me. If you're interested, when I get back to Vegas, I'll send you the picture. We opened this book. We started looking through the pictures. There's literally the picture of my ACL. She's like, the ACL is supposed to be like pearl white. My ACL was like pinkish, reddish. So what had happened is, I'm assuming I torn my ACL at some point. I don't even know when. Maybe obviously it wasn't a full tear. It was a partial tear. But somehow, over time, scar tissue healing, maybe the BPC, maybe the TB, helped to fucking put that ligament back together.
Did you do PRP in that leg ever?
Never. Okay. Never did PRP in the knee. Okay. And then in my brain, like, I'm like, okay, I've been on this TB 500 and BPC 157 for like 6 months now, and I've had zero issue with this knee ever since the fight. Like, ever since I hurt my knee, I've had zero issue. So it was like super bizarre to see that, because I've read so many things that say, oh, it's impossible for the ACL to re-heal. It's not possible. Surgery. You have to put it together by surgery, and then you have to take a piece of this and put it here, and you're like recovering from 2 injuries. I'm like, I just didn't like the sound of it. And I have friends that are professional rugby players who are literally playing week in and week out with no ACLs, and they're running, changing direction. I'm like, if they're doing that, I can fucking fight without an ACL, you know? So I kind of just was like, you know what, I'm going to do that. And it fucking worked. It's been working out for me. And yeah, like I said, this last 2 months, training has been going great out in Vegas, with Extreme Couture, training with.
How did this fight all come together and piecing it? Like, so is this your fourth fight into karate combat?
Yes, sir.
Going in now, you said this is for a belt.
No. So basically, the
winner of this.
Hopefully.
Okay.
That's what I'm hoping for. Basically, yeah, like I'm assuming 1 or 2 fights can get me a title shot. It's vacant right now. The champ retired, so it's vacant. We have quite a solid roster of middleweights. We're talking ex-UFC guys, Luke Rockhold.
Yeah.
You know, there's quite a few different names in the hat. So I'm definitely trying to get myself up there in that conversation.
The division you're saying it's kind of like people that are retired middleweight, or what is?
It's everyone from everywhere. We got guys that are former UFC guys.
Or what do they call that division?
Middleweight division?
Oh, it's just middleweight division. I thought you said it was something else. Like,
no.
Okay,
just
so
the middleweight
it's
division.
the actual middleweight division, 185.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and
Yeah.
do they structure the division similar to UFC in terms of weight?
In a way, yeah. The only reason I'm not fighting at welterweight is because their welterweight division is 165. So it's a little too light for me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to settle in at 85. It's like we said, 3x3. You know, less stress on the body.
How tall are you?
6'1".
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, you're 6'1", so that's okay.
Yeah, I always went down to 170 because I felt I was bigger for the weight class, but now at 85, like and actually in hindsight, I won my world title at 85. I have always felt very good at 85. I probably should have, for the most of my career, stayed at 85 just because I had a lot of a speed advantage over a lot of 85ers. Whereas at 70, those guys are pretty damn fast. Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. But for this little chapter in my career right now, that's the goal. I want that belt. And I like what Karate Combat's doing. I like the opportunities that are coming up. And yeah, hopefully, you know, maybe this time next year, there'll be some title opportunities.
So you had to kind of go through that ringer of having 4 fights to get to this position. Is it your management pushing you? Is it the social media? Like what's that springboard to get to that level so quickly?
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of a collaboration of everything, you know. I guess I'm unique because of, you know, I'm the only fighter out of Hong Kong, you know, to fight in the UFC, to, you know, kind of lead that way for my region out of Asia. And then being with my management obviously puts me in a good spot as well. You know, my social media is like, okay, like I got like a little bit of push on social media when I have fights coming up, and same as Karate Combat, they back their fighters quite well in terms of like pushing them through their marketing machine. So yeah, it's just like, for me in this game, I've been in it, you know, what are we at? 8 years as a professional. So it's like, I've done what I think I've needed to do to put myself in a position now where I'm like, okay, like I'm kind of respected in the industry. People know a little bit about me, know my background a little bit. So if it gives them the opportunity to kind of shine a light on Hong Kong or even just Southeast Asia, like it gives me, and then they look at me like, what the fuck, this guy's from Hong Kong, you know? So it's like, it just kind of opens the door a little bit. People are a little bit more interested, I guess, just to find out who the fuck I am and why I'm from Hong Kong kind of thing. And yeah, it's just how life's worked.
Will they bring it to Hong Kong?
Good question. That's a good question. I don't see why not.
I mean, this is a very good podcast, and to most guests you're a very good storyteller. And that's great, because then I've done 2, and I can do one of these and listen. It's great. But the point is, you're growing up in Hong Kong. You started off in karate. I don't like to turn these into psychology sessions, but I mean, you've gone from rugby to football to UFC. You played a bit of basketball, and everything seems to be pushing you away from those things. But you're back at karate now, full circle. So maybe this is what's meant to be from the beginning.
Yes, sir. I've had that.
You're literally back to where you came from.
I'm super big on that. Everything happens for a reason. And you know what it was? Like I grew up playing team sports. I was always in a team environment. And then when I finally kind of got my feet wet in the professional side of fighting, where I was like, this is all me. This is all me mentally. Sure, I need a team to get ready for it, but I'm going in there. There's no excuses. Like, I can't make an excuse for my performance. Whereas I can't tell you how many times I've been in massive games playing rugby or even football for that matter. And a teammate makes a mistake, makes an error. We don't get the win. We don't get that opportunity because of that. And of course, you're not going to come down on your teammate like that, but at the same time, you fucking want to, you know, and I like being held. I'm a person who believes in accountability. And as a fighter, like, I hold myself very highly in terms of like my preparation, the way I get ready for things, the way I conduct myself when I fight. So yeah, I just like that. It's the realest form. It's the truest form. You can't lie. You can't bullshit because you're going to get exposed, you know, and, I've been around people that are full of shit that they can talk their way into anything. Politics. I've played in teams where guys are so shit they don't even deserve to be there, but they're there because they know the right people or the right network. So in fighting, it doesn't work that way, at least in my opinion.
At the end of the day, when that bell rings.
Exactly. Like, bro, I was the B-side all of my career. Like, I only now have gotten good management, but I was just like, oh, this is the guy? Yeah, I'll fight, you know? And
yeah, but it's, I think Dan Blazarian told this story. It's the story, have you heard the story? It's like a philosophical story of the farmer and his son.
I think so, yes.
You know, where he's like, his son gets injured,
yeah,
and then
it prevents him from going to war.
And is this bad? And I mean, this kind of story, it comes around in that circle in the sense of like, this went wrong here, here, and here. But to be honest, if you ended up at Karate Combat 5 years ago, you're too early.
Yeah.
But the timing is literally perfect.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work 5 years ago.
No.
So it's very interesting to go into that, and especially you're still only 34. With 34 years old today, fighting would be like 10 years ago 44.
For sure.
Meaning, like, you probably still got a solid 6 years. Like, if you're healthy in terms of diet, sleep, stress, the amount of like technology we have out there, training partners. That's why people are able to fight till 40 now. I mean, look at Alex Pereira. The guy's almost 40.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Glover,
42-year-old Glover is a bit of an anomaly, but again, that ability to make it at that age, and I think it's age as a fighter can always be you're fighting against time,
for sure.
Right?
For
so
sure.
it's interesting to really hear that story and how that all has come full circle. And actually, if anything, the timing's perfect.
Yeah.
You go out, you win this fight, you win the belt, and it's like, oh fuck, maybe that's why all these things had to go wrong to get here.
No, for sure. I mean, I've had ups and downs throughout my life. I've gone through some really, really bad spots in my life. I've been in situations that not many people will experience, and but I've always been very positive. Like, I'm not like, yeah, you're gonna get upset on certain things that you want to happen and they don't happen. And I've learned when you really, 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 really want something and you like obsess over it to the point, like, it actually is not gonna happen. That's at least in my experience, you know? So I'm very live in the moment, good vibes, be positive, meet people, network, and enjoy life. Like you said, this is a small ass window. Like, I did an interview actually a couple days ago with my buddy John, Korean John.
Yeah, he's
and
been on,
and same thing. He's like, you know, like, if you don't fight anymore, it's not the end of your life. And I'm like, exactly, bro. Like, I have multiple businesses. I got into fighting because I love it. I'm passionate about it. I'm not here trying to find money from it. I'm not here trying to be famous. I'm not here because I have maybe some mental issues and I just want to fight people. No, I genuinely love the process of fighting, and I love the camaraderie and the people that I meet and the places I get to go and see. Like, that's the exciting part of fighting for me. And I know that window is short. So even before I started that path to be a professional fighter, I knew I had to have money in the bank. I knew that I had to do things maybe a little bit unorthodox than what everybody else does because my situation was just different, you know. And now I'm like super grateful because like I know tons of people who were in a way better spot than I was in the UFC. 10 fights in the UFC, 15 fights in the UFC, and now they have nothing, you know. And it's super sad at the same time, but
yeah, if you don't know how to manage your finances in that sense.
Exactly. And that was something that I found very important when I was young, was to make sure that I had that ironed out before I go down this path, because I knew how hard it was to be a fighter. It's like, look, if you're making $500, $1,000 a fight, like, how are you going to survive? You know what I mean? Sure, you can live in Thailand potentially, but even still, like, it's a hard life.
Yeah, I have a lot of up and coming fighters, 22, 24 come on, and they get too hung up on what they don't have, and they don't focus enough on what they need to do. To be honest, there's no answer to that, and I 100% get that. It's like I need to train, but I don't even have money to buy steak. Well,
Yeah.
that's a big part. And how do I take on sponsorships? It gets challenging.
For
I
sure.
mean, the ability for you to kind of take the financial stress off it's kind of I'm a poker player. Don't go to the poker table unless you're willing to lose every money you've showed up with. That's got to be challenging for a fighter to be like, okay, if I don't win this fight, I lose. You can't do things in life where whatever you're risking, if you lose it all, because emotion comes in. And when emotion comes in, you fucking lose.
For sure.
Guarantee. If any time I play poker with money I shouldn't have, I lose every single time. Because you enter that emotionally instead of like logically.
Logically, yeah. 100%.
It just is what it is.
Emotions, yeah. And that's another thing with fighting, man. When you fight, some guys can fight with emotion well, but for me, I don't fight emotionally. I'm very composed. Actually, that's one thing that I remember fighting a couple times in the UFC, and they're like, I remember DC saying, and he's like, yeah, that Sasha Palatnikov is very calm in there. Very, very calm. He looks very calm. And it's actually, and I know it sounds stupid and kind of weird, I get more nervous in other facets of life than I do in a cage fighting another man, if that even makes sense. You know, I feel very in my element when I'm in there. You know, I've been in courtrooms, I've been in other places, and I'm like fucking nervous as shit. But
well, for the fighting, if you're so well prepped, like Sun Tzu, the war is won before it is fought. So just like a meeting, if I have a business meeting, of course you're going to be freaked out, nervous with emotions if you're not prepared.
Exactly.
But when you're so well prepared, you go in, you've done the homework, right?
Exactly. And that relates back to the process. I love that process. Like, even if I lose the fight, it's like it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, I wins and losses, I want to win. I want to win every fight that I fight. But there's been so much to learn from losses that I've taken and used in my career that has only made me better. And I'm never going to say, like, yeah, you got to lose fights to get better in life. If you can be a Khabib, fucking do it. But I lost my first fight as a professional, right? So that was like, holy fuck, I didn't expect that. Like, I'm gonna win every single fight. That's what every single fighter expects, right? As an amateur coming as a pro. But it was a shock that, like, having that feeling, oh, okay, like, that didn't go according to plan. But now what? Now I gotta go win. Mm-hmm. Why did I lose? You go back, you see, what did I do wrong? Oh, maybe I wasn't doing this right. Maybe I wasn't doing that right. And it's your own problem solving that you can do in yourself. And I've met fighters don't wrestle at all, right? They just only train what they're good at. They don't like wrestling. And I've been criminal of doing that myself. And then they go out there and they just get absolutely wrestled and smashed. And then afterward, they're like, oh, fuck, like, my coach didn't give me enough attention, or like, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, bro, all you needed to be doing was wrestling, you know? And like, some people can see that and some people can't. And like, that's something that I've been able to identify early. It's like, I'm gonna call myself out on my own bullshit. Like, if I'm not putting in the work, like, I'll call myself out.
Yeah, you're paying for your own experiences. I mean,
Exactly.
It's a school of hard knocks. That's why there's certain people that are, I don't know, business coaches. There's reasons they're consultants. They don't take risk.
Yeah.
You pay, and then other people that are out there, whether you're investing in school at Concordia, that was your investment. You paid for something else. Instead of paying for theory, you pay for practical, that's invaluable, because that's something that you can really learn from. You can't learn from theory. It's impossible.
No, you got to experience it.
Yeah.
You got to experience it.
This roadmap, and I don't want to frame it this way, this type of question. And I think a lot of athletes at the top of their game will get asked that, like, what's after fighting? What do you do? That question is not relevant to you in the terms of a roadmap of what's after karate combat, or is karate combat, just comes the sole focus?
I've definitely thought, I've been asked the question multiple times, my family members, girlfriend, oh, what do you want to do when you finish fighting? Ideally, in a perfect world, I want to be in the combat sport space. If I can do commentary, if I can do some kind of media, I would be happy to. I would volunteer my time to do that for free, just to be just to build myself, maybe do some commentary work for free just so I can get better, or just experience it. Maybe it's not for me, but it'd be something that I think that I could do well, and I'm very well versed in the game. And I think I'm pretty well spoken, so I think I could potentially go down that route. But like I said, I have my business. I like to think of myself as someone that can just get up and go. wherever, if there's an opportunity that comes, I can do that.
What other businesses are you running?
So I own a health supplement company. It's actually more on the bodybuilding side.
Oh, so do I.
Oh yeah, no, yours is, yes, that's right. Yours with the mushrooms though.
Yeah, we do. We blew up. We're #1 in Thailand, and we
That's
just opened
amazing.
in Singapore.
Frank told me some stories about you getting chased by cobras.
Oh, that's another story. No, this is all legit. This is not like the psilocybin stuff. Yeah, but yeah, you're doing health supplements.
Yeah, so I have an 11-year-old company in the bodybuilding space. It's a product called N2Guard. It's basically a super high profile multivitamin with organ support. It's really, we gear it towards like men as a multivitamin, but also as like a cycle support. So people on TRT, people are on steroids,
like
different
PCT
cycles.
stuff.
Yes, it's more of just if you've heard of TUDCA, it's more of a liver protectant. So if you're taking like highly anabolic steroids or something that's a little bit harsh or toxic in your body, you need to put the right stuff in your body to protect yourself from it. So that was something that we came up with, over 12 years ago.
Just doing one product or multiple?
We have multiple. That's our breadwinner.
Yeah.
That's like our 90%. Everybody's buying
This
that.
is U.S. Amazon.
We're not on Amazon, but it's in the U.S. We have an online store. We are probably going to be working to get back on. We were on Amazon at one point previously, but
FDA shit.
yeah. So we're in the process of getting it all right again. But we're very underground in terms of like our systems are in like the bodybuilding forum world. We do a lot of our advertising through forums, not even through social media.
Do you know who Tony Hughes is?
No.
Oh, he's here in Pattaya. Same thing. He's like a huge influencer, but he's American and same type of stuff.
That's cool.
What's the guy's name? I'll think of it later. You'll probably know this guy, but they're all Americans. They're big social media guys. Exact same type of stuff.
Yeah.
So you just do this through the website, and people are coming in through like via Stripe and.
Yeah, so we have a merchant and we have our website. So we do several products. We do like pre-workouts, we do fat burners, we do test boosters, we do sleep, we do basically everything that is kind of associated to health and fitness for the bodybuilding community. That's kind of the big emphasis and push there. And I also have a green supplement that actually my dad and I came up with in 2010. It's like a basically 55 ingredient panel of extracts from fruits and vegetables.
It's a sachet or?
It's a big bottle. We don't do sachets. Yeah, it's just a drink. It's a drink. Yeah, it's
okay.
You scoop a powder in the water, shake it up.
Oh, so you're selling it's a powder. Mm-hmm. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. So literally that product was myself and my dad. So when I was transitioning from, into the football world, I was like, I need to get big. I need to eat, right? And I was like not super well versed in the kitchen. So I was like, Dad, we need to come up with like a pill that I can take and get all my nutrients from fruit and vegetables because I never fucking eat it. So that was literally the start of a conversation coming up with that product. And me and my dad and our business partner, mentor, family friend, best friend, we all put our heads together and came up with, it's called Greens. And that's been a product that we literally didn't even make for sales. We made it for us as a family.
Exactly why I built this.
That's awesome.
I'm like, nobody has it. And then you're like, all right, I guess I'm going to make it.
Yeah. And so that was the whole purpose of it. And I was the guinea pig. There was one time when I was living in Buffalo, New York, I set up a stall in the mall. I was trying to sell it out of the mall. And I was doing like speeches, going to schools, educating kids. I'm like, look, you're spending $2 a day and you're serving of fruits and vegetables in one scoop, like trying to push that. I went to Hong Kong, did it. So I did a little bit of that. We did it, like I said.
That's a lot of groundwork.
Yeah, it's just when you're passionate and you know what you're talking about, it doesn't even feel like work. And I like helping. If I can help someone who maybe isn't the healthiest or doesn't really know what they need to do to be healthy, like I get passionate about it. Like and that's kind of what leads into the work that I do with the bodybuilding community. You get a lot of people who just really don't know what to do. And a lot of these guys are like, oh, I've never worked out before. I've never trained before. I've never taken anything before. Now I want to take everything. And I'm like, hold up. You don't need to take anything,
Yeah.
bro. Like, how's your diet? What's your lifestyle like?
Your blood work.
Yes, go get blood work. Let's go look under the hood, and then we can start to facilitate things. 9 times out of 10, most people are like, oh, I want to jump on testosterone. You don't even need to.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, most people are already heavily poisoned. They're not eating correctly. They're not sleeping right. Their lifestyles are all over the shop. So for me, like, as a kid, I don't drink. You know, I was never, ever into that lifestyle. So I've always been into health. My dad's a former professional athlete. I've been surrounded by it my whole life. So this is just my daily day to day, you know? So when people ask me, oh, what do I eat? What are the best ways? So in a way, I don't charge for those services. It's just part of the company. So when people reach out to me, I'm the sole owner. They know who I am. They're like, hey, bro, I have some questions. Yeah, give me a call. Jump on the call. You know, so I am busy in that regard for helping people. But at the same time, we have reps. We have other people who also do it. It's a big community.
You sell it to like retail, or is it all online?
It's all online. We do have some wholesalers. We have a wholesaler in the UK.
This product is on Amazon too, or?
Greens?
Yeah.
No, greens.
Just on your website?
Just on the website, yeah.
And just USA?
Yeah, just USA at the moment. We have, so for N2 Guard, we have a wholesaler in the UK. He distributes in the UK. And we're working with some people in Australia potentially. But yeah, we just sell.
Australia is tough to get into.
It is. It's just so many regulations and shipping and costs.
And it's such a small population.
Yeah, we just had a lot of interest from Australia, people reaching out, and I'm like, if it works, we can do it. But if it's not going to work, it's fine too. You know, we do a great job like, I look at it, it's like, I understand the marketing mechanism, and we haven't even scratched the surface of it. And that's the great thing about it.
Yeah, it's a bit. I just finished Alex Hormozi's 100 Million Leads. Have you read this book?
No.
Well, it just get the Amazon audio. For me,
audiobook.
I put this stuff and I just walk 8K.
That's dope.
Holy fuck, man! I'll come out of my walk
sweating
like,
balls out here.
I'm just like leaving voice notes to my business partner. I'm like, we got to do all this shit. And then like the funny part is when you listen to these guys, like this book is literally a playbook. I thought I was leveled up. I'm like, oh, I know nothing. I'm like these guys, like your Gary V's, like you look at them and like you realize you don't know anything. Like in terms of the media and the e-commerce, I can run it at a certain level, and then you listen to the guys doing 100 million, 200 million, like
I know.
Fucking, I'm literally doing nothing.
Exactly. I know. like I said before earlier on, like I like to stay in my lane. Similar, you know, like I found my lane, I understand it, but like stuff like that I do want to, especially like as I start to get later on in my career, like I really want to start to put more emphasis.
$100 million leads, Alex Hormozi, Amazon. You'll listen to it and you'll come out of that with like so many ideas, and you'll realize like there's just so much. Like when at my business, I'm like, I am losing so much revenue. I'm like, oh my, and then you panic a bit. Because you're like, oh, that's 900 hours of work. Fucking hell. So maybe don't listen to it yet. Maybe
wait a bit.
Go do your fight
don't
first.
Stress me out.
Dude, it's like, it's great though. It's like, it's unreal. Like, and I'm not one, you get skeptical. Like, what are you selling me? No, what he's doing, it's fucking genius. Hormozi, he has a company called acquisitions.com. So he's created a book. And you can read it, obviously, but the audio is fine because he talks to you. He's smart. He's written it in an 8th grade level. However,
anyone can understand.
Anyone can understand it. But he basically says at the beginning of the book, he's like, "Why am I giving you this for free?" He's like, "I'm giving you a playbook because I want you to go make $5 million in revenue and show me $1 million in profit and come back to me and I will buy your company." It's genius. It's a genius play. He just goes, why would I give you consulting and coaching for hours and hours? Listen to this whole book. Everything I just tell you here, implement that. Go build your business and sell your company to me. That's Imagine sick. He releases that to the world and everyone just shows up with profitable business.
Lining up at the door. It's going to be like Shark Tank.
It's a genius play. And obviously you will go to him first because you'll know how to talk to him, because you've spoke that language, you followed his playbook, and you're going to show up at the door, and if you can't answer all the questions he just explained to you, you have nothing to sell to him. He'll be like, what about this, this, and this? That guy is going to make $1 billion, and he's going to have $1 billion book, and it's going to be on this book in 5 to 10 years. Wow. Because all guys like me that are building it, we need about 5 years. And then it's just going to funnel into him. It's a fucking genius play.
That's awesome. Yeah. And is this like, I guess, a relatively new book?
Yeah, like 6 months.
Oh, shit.
Maybe a year. He wrote another one called the $100 million Offer, which was before that or something like that. I didn't get to that one. That one is just teaching you how to build a product. We don't need that.
Yeah.
You have the offer.
product. Yeah.
Now this one is like, okay, how do you actually do paid ads? How do you do affiliate marketing? How can you get people selling product for? It's so every time this is the third time I've listened to it. I put this thing on repeat and walk around and just like take voice notes, come back home and just write it down.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna definitely be looking at that.
After you'll go nuts.
Yeah,
Like,
that's cool.
I finished one chapter today. Holy shit. He does a whole chapter on like affiliate marketing, but how to actually do it. Meaning like, here is how you structure a 3-tiered system. And then after, he gives you a link to his website where you can go watch a video where he draws on a whiteboard, and only you get that link. So it's like you get the audio, and then you can go watch an actual play. Like, he's literally giving you a playbook.
That's awesome.
Fucking dude,
It
gets me fired up. After this, I have so much work to do.
I feel you.
All right, so you got the fight. You said you're leaving kind of this weekend, and it's
Yeah, I leave on Saturday.
when's the fight?
Wednesday.
On Wednesday, Singapore. So do they do that for American time? Like, what time are you fighting at?
To be honest, I haven't found out, but my guess is it's going to be evening, like local evening time, because there is I'm not sure if you're familiar, but this week in Singapore, they have like the biggest crypto conference ever, Token 2049 or something. So all the crypto people are coming in, and that's kind of why Karate Combat always is around the crypto space. They're like heavily invested in crypto, and whenever they have shows, they make sure there's like crypto related stuff going.
So they'll do the fight at night?
Yeah, I believe so.
Which would be like really early morning.
It's probably going to be morning time in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm a crypto lunatic. Are you in crypto? Or?
A little bit. I have a little bit of investing, but not too crazy. I just go with Bitcoin, to be honest with you.
That's all. I'm Bitcoin maxi. Everything else is a fucking shit coin.
I don't even fuck with
I love when people call me like, so do I buy ETH or Bitcoin? I'm like, you're an idiot.
Bro, like when I made my UFC debut, I took my 50K bonus and invested straight in crypto.
Genius.
And no, even funnier was back when I was in school, how I used to make money was I was that guy who was able to get you like, oh, you want 1,000 likes on Facebook? Yeah. You want more friends, more followers. So I was able to do that. I was selling services on that, and people would pay me in Bitcoin. Back when it was worth nothing.
Well, you're probably selling it.
No, So actually what happened was I'd taken I think I received maybe 17 Bitcoins early on, and for maybe a year just didn't remember, forgot about it. And then I think I spent 7 on some stupid shit for myself online, for some services. So I had 10 and then completely forgot about it. And then fast forward 7 years, and I cashed out at 12,000 a coin.
This is
so that was before I went to the Black Zillions, and that was my secret nest egg that came out of nowhere and really fortified me to pursue my career even further and invest in my future business.
Yeah, when people say, "Yeah, I bought Bitcoin for a penny," it's like, you didn't hold it to 70K.
No, still don't have it.
No, there's no way. These people are like, "Oh yeah, I got it in 2016." I'm like, the balls on you to hold that to 70K. Come on. You would have been selling, how many people are selling at 20? But now people know what it is.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm holding this fucker to it's going
until it goes with 200,000.
I think 200 this cycle. Mm-hmm. I only buy Bitcoin. Actually, what I do is I don't have any money. Everything I do is in Bitcoin, and I use credit cards. So I use your shit money, which is the fiat standard, and I'll use that on my credit cards because dollar cost average over 10 years, 8 years, actually I'm making money. Because now if I have, let's say you have $100,000, right? And my bill this month is $1,000, and I have $100,000, but in Bitcoin, but I pay this off. But then Bitcoin goes up 10%. Yeah. But Bitcoin goes up 50% every year. So actually, my cost is 50% less.
That's true.
I learned this from Jack Mahler, the guy of Square. This is what he does. He has no money. Everything's Bitcoin, and then he has his Bitcoin Binance account. Everything paid with credit card. At the end of the month, he has to pay the card off, send it to the credit card.
So you can pay your credit card off with Bitcoin?
No. So you'll have a bank account, right? and you have a Binance account, right? So you use your credit card for your whole life, swipe all around the fucking world. Then you have an American Binance and an American bank account. Every month, at the end of the month, you have to pay your credit card.
So you just
convert the Bitcoin, send it in, pay off your credit card,
and then let that interest build
and just leave it.
It's like if you leave the money in the bank, you're only gonna get a return of what?
0. Inflation will kill you.
Exactly.
What's the bank gonna get?
What country is it? It's like Malta or something. They'll give you like 7%, right? That's the max you could possibly get on the planet. There's nothing that would compete.
It can't compete. And people are like, well, Bitcoin went down 50%. I'm like, no, zoom out.
Look at the whole year.
If you had $1 million and you left it in Bitcoin for 10 years and you did this play, it's called dollar cost average out, dollar cost average in. Yeah, some months you're losing, but over 10 years, if you use that system of payment, you make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. I didn't even think of it like that.
That's
to be
Jack
honest
Mahler talked to, and it clicked my mind. I'm like, now it doesn't work when you only have $5,000. Like if your cash is only if you live paycheck to paycheck, obviously
not gonna work.
What's the point of just use your cash?
Yeah, no. For me, like I literally don't touch it. I just keep adding it to it monthly.
That's it.
I just like a couple thousand here, a couple thousand here, build it up.
I think it's going.
I've just been waiting for them to literally give us like, I go into 7-Eleven, here's my crypto credit card. Like that's the only thing I've been waiting for, because when that happens, that's when it's going to hit.
Yeah, that's a long time away. That's not there. All right, let's wrap it. We probably talked an hour and a half. How long? 90? 2 hours? Yeah. Fuck. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to kick this camera to you, the big one. And just, if you can check into that camera, just let everyone know where they can find you. So we'll leave all the socials down in the links below.
You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, X, Sasha Palatnikov. Very unique name. No one else really got it. Sasha Palatnikov MMA or Palatnikov MMA. Check out our podcast, the Culture Crooks podcast, with me and the homie Daniel Rodriguez. It's been a while since we busted out an episode, since we were out in Saudi Arabia for his last fight, but stay tuned because we're going to have some more content coming out after my scrap. But appreciate you for coming out and letting me come out here and have this awesome conversation.
Sweet. All right, big shout out. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Sasha. And that ends another episode.